Good afternoon, my name is Olya. I am 26 years old and for 7 years I was considered missing and was miraculously found. I can't say exactly what day it was, but at that time I was 3.5 years old. My parents were working in Kiev at that time and I was going to visit my grandmother in the village with my father. We were waiting at the train station and at that moment my dad went to the restroom. Well, a girl like me couldn't go with him, and honestly, I don't even remember who he left me with, but it turned out that no one was really watching me. That's how it happened that I was taken away. No one knew this woman, not my parents, not my grandmother, no one. She was a complete stranger. Well, apparently she somehow caught my interest, maybe she offered me something. I remember that there used to be a round kiosk at the train station where they sold all sorts of little books and things like that. I had a few kopecks on me because I wanted to buy a little book. Maybe she offered like, come on, I'll buy it for you. Dad called Mom right away. Of course, they ran all over the station, searching and asking people, and they asked for announcements to be made on the trains. But unfortunately, no one did that. Then she also went to the police station. There's one at every station. Well, there they said, wait, maybe she'll come back. In Kiev, Mom reported her missing, and they told her to wait 3 days, and the case was actually sent to the local police in Gurovka. The Kiev railway station is 100 kilometers from Gurovka. Who's going to look for her here? No one responded in time. She was considered missing. There's a certain gap in my memory. I don't remember how she took me away. It's like my brain just blocked out those memories. I didn't remember anything from before her, and I really thought she was my grandmother. When I asked where my parents were, she told me they died in a car accident. Then every year, which was strange, she would put out a photo of a man and celebrate his birthday. She called me Dina, Dana, and Diana. Sometimes, if we went somewhere, like if we were riding public transport, she would put a cap on me, hide my hair, and I would be Kolya. Well, when I asked why, she said it was so I wouldn't get jinxed. I was a noticeable child, so I wouldn't get jinxed or anything. From what I understand, she knew people might be looking for me. Especially since, as it turned out, for a very long time I was still wearing the clothes she kidnapped me in. I even had leather boots, the kind that used to have little hooks. And when they became too small, she just cut them off at the toes for me. Well, she said it was necessary to make my foot narrow so it wouldn't be wide. Sometimes she called herself Valya, sometimes Ira. So how did it turn out that her name was Friza? She actually came either from Germany, not as a refugee. Apparently she was either Jewish by origin or something like that. Friza had a husband. He was a sailor, a captain. He was a deep-sea sailor, but he left her. She had a son. Maybe what she told me, that my parents died in a car accident, maybe that was true. That her son died there. Maybe she had a granddaughter who looked like me. So maybe it's something psychological. She might have really believed that I was her granddaughter. And we lived in a basement. It wasn't even a room, it was a hallway. It was just a regular basement. There was a long hallway, and each resident had their own sort of little room there, a workshop or something like that. Well, we arranged boxes. We placed 4 plastic boxes and put cardboard on top. Then some, well, sheepskin coats, shoes, or maybe a blanket. And we slept there. It was an improvised bed. We didn't do laundry because there was nowhere to dry it. And for bathing, we went to public bathhouses. Back then, there were plenty of them all over Odessa. Otherwise, we washed ourselves in a basin, down in the basement, and we always had to use tar soap, as she said, so nothing would infest us. The smell was terrible, to be honest. She apparently had some kind of obsession. She collected everything. So, when you enter that basement, there are just piles of bags, boxes, everything. Stacked up. There were places you couldn't even get through. It was packed almost up to the ceiling. We would wake up, well, we would leave very early, because I needed to make sure none of the other residents saw me. This would happen like this. She would go out, she would check if anyone was in the yard, on the bench, or anywhere. She would give me a signal, and I would come out quickly. Then she would follow after me. If someone was there, then obviously we would just sit there. We needed to keep them from coming down so they'd see less. That's all. I made sure there was nothing, no rustle, no sound, so that no one would hear anything. Because during the day, people would come there. There were workshops there. Someone was sewing, another was busy, and I had to sit quietly. God forbid. Sometimes we didn't go anywhere at all. We just sat there. Sometimes we would first go to the market. And then we could go to church and maybe just sit somewhere in the park. We would just walk around the city all day. I didn't go to kindergarten because she didn't have any documents for me, no birth certificate, nothing. She also taught me at home instead of sending me to school. Well, by the way, she was actually quite an educated person. She wasn't stupid. I didn't talk to anyone except her. I didn't have any friends, no one. The only time people recognized me was if we were at church because they knew me there. But as for spending time with other kids or anyone else, no, unfortunately, I didn't have any friends. Well, we didn't even go to places where children usually hang out, actually. I think, yes, she was mentally ill, but not in the sense that she was aggressive or attacked people, although that did happen sometimes. She would collect everything, both useful and useless things. She collected everything. Plus, it was also connected to me because she firmly believed that I was her granddaughter, yes. Mind you, this was a seemingly educated person who, as it turned out, had an apartment in the building where we lived. She had a place in the basement and an apartment on the 4th floor. Why would someone live in the basement when they have an apartment? She was getting money from somewhere, yes, but she didn't really use it. And we lived just like that, the way we did. Sometimes we would eat at the market, sometimes at the church. One woman came down, she saw me by accident. Well, that old lady covered me with a blanket. They asked her, "Who is that girl?" She said that it was like an acquaintance from the market asking her to watch her daughter for a while. Well, that was the first time. And she seemed to believe it, but when they saw me again later, she hid me again. They started to get worried. And this woman, she's the building manager, she went to the police and filed a report, but they told her maybe the girl would be better off with this old woman. She asked them to show photos, for example, of missing children. I'll recognize her, especially since she's a noticeable redhead. And back then, I don't think I changed much in those 2 or 3 years. They didn't show her anything and said she might be better off there. When the residents of that house found me, we had to go somewhere, and we lived with an old man. That was probably the most painful moment for me because that's when they beat me so badly because something had been poured into a glass. I'm a child, I bought it. It turned out it wasn't water at all, it was something else. And I got punished so badly for that, so much. And it wasn't her who beat me, he beat me so badly with a belt. My whole back was covered in welts. I ran away then and I spent one night sleeping under a car. And then for a couple more nights, I don't even know, honestly, I'm just remembering it now. I don't know how I wasn't afraid. I spent the night on the roof of a building. Until she asked some young men, they climbed up and took me down from there. Basically everything there was unpleasant, but that was painful. I was with her for about 7 years. I ran away from that old lady. I don't know how old I was because honestly, I didn't even know my exact age back then. I just wanted to go out and play like all the other kids. You just want to, you walk by and see kids running around in similar things. You want those toys too? I ran away and somehow made friends. I met a girl, she's a Romani. She brought me to her people. I stayed there. I was there for literally 2 days, and it's customary for them to go out to work, well, to beg. So on the first day I went out with them. We were actually walking near the house where we lived with Tuntapka, as we eventually realized. The police were passing by and saw me. Well, I didn't really look like a Roma woman. I didn't have that appearance. They took me away. They began asking for my full name. A Roma woman told me, "You are so-and-so." I told her my name. In the end, they didn't believe me. And I was sent to the first shelter. I stayed in the shelter for about a year. Children stay there until their documents are processed or until their parents are found. So it's just for a short period of time. When I got to the shelter, I immediately started 3rd grade. Because for 1st and 2nd grade, she had already taught me everything, basically. She used to come there. I don't even know on what grounds, since she didn't even have my original documents. They would call me in and have me sit with her, my grandmother, and ask if I wanted to live with her. I refused because I saw how others lived and preferred living in the shelter. There were kids there was some activities, there was entertainment, so yes. And to sit in the basement with her again, well, honestly, I just didn't want to anymore. They sent me back to the shelter again. And she used to come there. She would regularly walk along the fences. She called me over. She tried to pass something to me there. She asked me to run away. Then for a while they stopped letting me outside at all because she was coming by so often. Well, while I was at the first shelter, a TV crew came and filmed me. They were looking for my parents, and my mom's acquaintance saw the broadcast. This woman lives in a village. She saw it completely by accident. In the photo, I still had such short, terribly short hair. But basically, there was a resemblance because of the red hair. And she called my mom, like, I think this is Olya. My mom also went to the website, asked someone she knew, looked at the photo. Yeah, and she said that when she saw it, she had no doubt that it was me. Honestly, at our first meeting, I wouldn't say that any feelings just suddenly sparked. I instinctively thought, in the shelter, all the kids are waiting for parents. Basically, they asked me who I was waiting for, so I said, Mom. Well, it was still kind of tense. I mean, we literally saw each other for just a couple of minutes. She called me every day, and I really wanted her to take me home already. I mean, I understood that they really were my parents. But unfortunately, I had to wait for about another year. There had to be a court hearing, DNA testing, and an expert examination to prove that they really were my parents. Since I have no memories of them at all, I didn't even remember them honestly. Even to this day, I can't recall anything from that time, from that moment. The psychologist at the first orphanage suggested this might be the brain's protective response. When the DNA test was done, it really confirmed that, well, my parents really are my biological parents. And then the court gave permission and they took me home. I came here when I was 12 years old. Honestly, I was disappointed that we moved to a village. Well, first of all, I was used to Odessa, even though it was a bit sad in some ways. It also mattered that my grandma always scared me by saying that if I didn't do something, I'd have to go to the village and work with cows. And when I arrived in the village, for some reason I remembered what she used to tell me. Honestly, I felt really sad, really. I started calling my parents Mom and Dad right away. It just came easily to me. Well, maybe somewhere deep down you really understand that they are your parents. It didn't cause any difficulties. Yes, I was at that age and my personality was already kind of formed. My personality was already formed. And actually it was very difficult with Mom. Well, every year on my birthday, she would buy me some kind of toy. She would buy me things from time to time. So she would roughly guess how old I was, what stage I was at. Really, when I arrived, there were a lot of things. It was actually easier with Dad. For a while, he blamed himself since he was at the train station then. Overall, everyone was happy. And no one even brought up the topic that I had been kidnapped. There was none of that. No one asked what happened or how it happened. And honestly, that's a good thing. Yes, I have an older sister. And I have an older brother. I was happy that I had them. Well, it was hard. My mom thought that when she took me, I would already know how to cook everything. But I just didn't even have the opportunity to learn that, for example. It was all new to me. When I got home, I wanted to go out more, to spend more time with people my age. I could go out without asking since there wasn't such strict supervision. Well, yes, they would call me, sometimes even 10 times, if I stayed out late, and just to make things worse, I wouldn't answer the phone. Sometimes I say I'm on my way, but that could mean another half hour. I think everyone has experienced this. About 3 months after my parents took me home, I went back to school and I joined my class with my peers. I didn't have to sit in first grade at the age of 12, for example. My homeroom teacher called me over to her. And she said, well, we've seen an old lady here who looks a lot like her, wearing glasses and all that. Be careful. Well, I was like, okay, I thought, fine. The next day we go to school. And there was this little market that came every Thursday, I think. And we would all go there for chips and everything else. And she was walking. I saw her, honestly, I got scared. And I ran straight to the school. I called the homeroom teacher. I said that she was there, that she really was there. And then a villager comes and brings a little bag from that old lady. There was a bounty bar and something else. And a little gold pendant shaped like a treble clef. She had this fixed idea that I should sing, that I should study music. A man comes in and says, Mother from some church has arrived. Yes, she introduced herself to him as mother, said she was just passing through and had nowhere to stay. He took her in, and then I wasn't allowed to leave school. We waited until she left. The girls were already walking me home. I come in, and she's standing there talking to my father. He had never seen her before, and he introduces me to her. "Mother, that's my daughter over there. She's standing there. Yes, yes." I don't know why, but I didn't say that it was her. Either I was afraid that he would do something to her, or, well, I don't know. She had already left, and I came. I told him. He started asking why I didn't tell him right away. Well, I just said, she doesn't need anything. It's nothing. The residents of the building say that she used to curse. She became really bitter, especially after I was taken away from her. Well, I ran away and ended up in a shelter, and my parents took me back. She became really bitter back then. And she even started pouring urine on their heads. They kicked her out of the basement. They threw all her things out of there. And she lived in the stairwell. And she put so many curses on people. And they really believed that she had some kind of power. Because one person she cursed got cancer. He died of cancer. And now another resident there is sick. I had gone to Kiev to stay with my sister and work for the summer. She called me. And I was already in Kiev. She says, "I'm here at the bus stop. Come over and we'll leave together." I say, "Okay." I call my mom. She was at home here. I say, "Here's what happened." She called from the bus stop. "Come over, we're leaving." Mom came to the bus stop. A white Mercedes was parked briefly. Mom just opened the back door. She must have told the driver. That's what Dad said. He hit the gas and they drove off. She really was in that car. Tell me, does she look like a homeless person? She arrived in a Mercedes. After that, she never showed up again. That was the last time I saw her. It was 5 years ago. And even then, it was with the film crew. We were filming a show. We ran into her there by chance. She asked me again to stay with her. I asked her, I said, "Why?" "Why did you take me?" She said, "I didn't take you away." "Your grandmother asked me to take you?" "Yes." "But that's impossible, if only because a year after I disappeared, my grandmother passed away." And it hit so hard. Even everyone here felt it. The strength of this shows that my grandmother adored me. She tried. I need to believe in my own mind, so that I would believe my parents were bad, that everyone was bad, that they gave me away themselves, so that I would stay with her. But it didn't work. I was already a bit too old for that. Recently we were in Odessa. Her situation there is very sad, what ended up happening to her. My grandmother is no longer alive. For myself, I would be interested to understand what happened to her. In general, what led her to do what she did? I don't even want to imagine how things would be if my parents hadn't been found. It happened, so it was meant to be. It's just a set of circumstances that had to happen. I guess I put this story far away in my mind. I don't think about it. I rarely remember it at all, only if I have to, like now. I can't say that I have any issues because of it. Now I'm a mother of 2 children. I take care of the house. We're not working right now. I'm on maternity leave and really fear something like this could happen to my kids. Especially nowadays. In reality, children go missing very often. We were traveling to Odessa with the kids. My husband kept asking me, hold their hands tightly. To be young, to be considered missing for 7 years, and in the end to return home, that's happiness. And honestly, it's a miracle.